Hey guys, 7-ish, and I'm just wearing the drunkish shirt.
Hey, you're drunkish. Okay. Welcome everybody.
Hey.
Yes, let's rock and roll. Kelly looks really good for once.
Much more
I shaved.
The good
Is that
look,
what you're saying?
That's the good looking. That's the good looking Kelly that did the intro.
Oh.
Well, who's the one's always saying face for radio?
Hashtag upgrade.
If I can look like Kelly in 10 years, or 12, however many
20.
years,
Try 20.
I'm just, then I think I'm doing well.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. It was gonna be one of those. If I ever get like that, kill me.
Shoot me.
No, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that.
All right. Well, let's rock and roll, everybody. We've got some. Last week we did inventory, 7 things you didn't know. Today we've modified it slightly of 7-ish. Things you don't know about.
We might not make it, or we might go over. So
Yeah.
we go with the ish.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We're gonna talk about a few points. If you have any questions, by all means,
Throw
'em out. And if they're slightly applicable, then yeah, we'll do that. Okay, so let's go ahead. I want to talk about package options. So before we do that, there's a little dance through the preferences here. Let's take a peek at...
Just so you guys know, preferences is now under options.
Yeah. So like in performance, you've got your push and your pull. Mm-hmm. Right. This is very important. This depends on whether or not you've got files. Basically, if the files are going to be on the PDQ Deploy server that you're going to deploy, then it's okay to use push. If those install files, your console, you've got your deploy installed, your server installed on one machine, but those files exist on another one, you want to use pull.
Yeah.
All right, because that means you're going to just basically tell all your targets, hey, go out to this file server, grab these install files and pull them down. Otherwise, you're copying them down to your machine
console
and pushing them all out. Yeah,
yep.
But here's the thing, and this is what we want to call out. This is a global setting from this point of view, but you can change this on certain packages. So maybe your repository is local. You have your files that are local, but you've built some custom packages that are on a file server. You don't have to use the global setting for push and for pull, as well as a few other things that we'll cover.
You can set it on the package level. Basically, what you're saying.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do? Let's just go to. Let's just grab this Adobe Reader DC because it's near to hand. Open that up. And go to the properties. The properties of a package. It's the very top node on the left tree.
Surprisingly, if you go to options there, that's where you find these.
Yep, in options. So we've got our copy mode is set to push, but let's say that I've got these files that live on a file server, and it's only for this particular package. I can simply change that to a pull, and it will pull when this package is deployed.
Now, when you save this, it's going to keep that as a setting on this package.
On this package, yes.
One, yep.
And then this supersedes whatever the global setting is, because at this level you want to be able to supersede the general, basically. So the general setting. So that's one thing we want to call out to you. Just because it's set in preferences doesn't necessarily mean you have to use that way. Look at those package options. Another one, scan after deployment. I'll change that back. The scan after deployment. If you go out.
Under your preferences again.
Under your preferences, under deployments, you'll see there's the scan after deployment. This works if you have inventory. You need to have inventory in Pro or Enterprise mode. And basically, this is you saying, after I deploy software, I want to scan this computer. I mean, that makes sense. When you run a deployment, generally, you want to scan the target computer because...
Update the info.
Yeah, maybe your package added an application or an uninstalled one, and you want that information to be up to date in inventory. And you get to choose your inventory scan profile. In this case, we've chosen applications.
Makes sense.
But let's say that there's a package that you don't want to either scan applications. Maybe, the application scan profile, that scans for hotfixes and applications and basic computer information. It doesn't scan for stuff like Windows components or services.
Or maybe even a registry change at that point.
Or a registry change. So maybe you've got a package that you want to look for a Windows component, and you don't want to change that scan after profile for all deployments. Once again, go in here, properties, and changing the scan option to, instead of the default, which is program, you can say scan after with a different profile, maybe we'll do standard so that we can grab the Windows
That's cute.
components,
Uh-huh.
or if you have a custom profile for the registry, right? So you can scan it, or as you can see, as we had done when I opened this up, we had this one set to just do not scan. So a couple of other cases where maybe a do not scan is appropriate. If you have a package that does only a reboot.
Yeah, I was going to say, no reason to scan that.
But we have a lot of, it's a very, very popular thing, a package. It has one step to reboot, and that is run on a schedule every Saturday night. There's no reason to do a scan after on that. Once again, just go to that package properties and those package options, I should say.
So, and the only thing I got to add to that is, why do that at night? Do it in the middle of the day. Remind people.
Of course.
Yep, that you are the sysadmin.
The
No comments, Chris? You just sitting over with a big grin on your face?
I just have to laugh every time.
now we've got this set. I don't want to put this one to bed quite yet. We've got this one. We've got set in our preferences on the offline status here for our deployments. We have ping before deployment. That is in preferences under deployments. What this means is we're expecting a number of computers to be offline at the time of the deployment, and we don't want to waste time trying to initiate a deployment on those computers.
So launch a ping, see if it's there.
Yeah, so we
If it
simply,
answers,
the ping before deployment really only works if you have a decent network because it times out after 2 seconds, it's 2,000 milliseconds. It will ping a target before deploying. If that does not return within 2 seconds, it's going to say this is offline because you have this ping before deployment set. It's just going to mark that as I'm not even going to attempt this. You'll see the error code is just offline settings.
Yep.
This is great if you want to avoid those offline computers. But let's say you have a package that you want to use the wake on LAN feature. You just don't want that set globally. Once again, you just go and change that in the properties under offline settings. Offline status, we're not going to use the settings from preferences. We're going to uncheck that. We're not going to ping before deployment. We're going to send a wake on LAN. And then that means if a computer is offline, it will attempt to wake it up. All right? All right, let's go ahead. We have a question?
Dear Shane and Lex, why can't I nest auto deploy packages into a regular package? Sincerely, Stephen V.
That was actually a design.
Yeah.
That was you can kind of do that with schedules. Do I remember? I remember this discussion.
Yeah.
There was some. You want to pipe in there, Chris?
I remember the discussion. That's about it as well.
It was yeah. When we were designing this, I'm sorry that it's been years. We decided not to allow nesting of auto deployment packages, and there was some other reasons. But once again, you can kind of get to this. Let's go to a schedule.
You can build a nested schedule.
Yeah, you can have
Auto
and like
deployments, yeah.
baseline apps here. We've got some packages. Now, these packages are all auto deployment packages, but you can attach a local. You can attach a local package to this, so that when you run this schedule, it will run a mix of auto deploy as well as your local packages. But probably just because the auto deploy was going to be changing quite a bit, and I remember now. I remember.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so when you set auto deploy, pardon me. Now I remember. I'm sorry. Okay, when you set auto deploy, let me just remove this. Detach from schedule.
Boom.
At this point, we are actually planning on kind of changing this in a future release. I'm going to go out to the package library. I'm going to say I want to do an Adobe Air auto deployment. And I want you to notice, if I hit import here, you're going to actually see a package created locally for Adobe Air. But when I do an auto deployment, we'll just add this to an existing schedule. We'll add it to baseline. And it will start, let's see, we go auto deployment packages. You're going to see Air gets created, but that package isn't here. And the nested packages it only looks for the local. That was it. Yeah, it looks for local. That package actually doesn't exist in the form of your regular packages that you can deploy. Yeah.
Or make changes to it at that point either.
It downloads those binaries, the install files, and then you have your auto deployment package. So we're planning on making some changes where we kind of marry the imported packages with the auto deployment feature, and as well as custom packages that you've created. And at that point, you'd be able to do that, or you should. I guess I shouldn't make promises, but anyway, that was why. This is not a package in the conventional sense right now. It's an auto deploy package, but you can do that. The schedules were built to allow both. So, sorry for that convoluted answer.
Are there any other options we need to hit, or should we move on to run as?
Well, the run as is part of an option, but it is one that's worth calling out.
Yeah, definitely.
So going back to, pardon me, let's see. In deployments under preferences, we highly recommend that when you set your your default run packages as setting, you use deploy user.
Yeah.
Now you have the usual options of deploy user interactive. This should be used on a case-by-case basis. Deploy user or logged on user, definitely on a case-by-case basis. And local system. The only time there's only two options I think that you should even be considering here for the preferences. And that's deploy user or local system. Local system only if you have policies in place that require that.
Yep.
Otherwise, because once you use local system, you kind of remove the ability for that package, once it's running on a target, to access remote file services. And you might need a file from a file server at some point. So deploy user should be your default.
Yeah.
However, this can be changed. And it's important, what we want to call out quickly is the precedence. So number one, whatever's set from preferences, that is the default.
Yep.
However, when you build a package, the second level of precedence, which overtakes whatever's the default, is the deploy user, run as. So you'll see that it's set to, we've got that set to deploy user. You could use the default, which is whatever's set in preferences. Or for this package, you can say, I want to use deploy user or local system just for this package. And that will overwrite whatever is on preferences. All right. But then this can also be superseded. Now this is important. If you just have this package, I want this package to run this way, and all of these steps are set to use the default. If you look at the options, notice now the run as is set to local system. Why? Because it's using the package setting up here, which takes precedence over the preferences. And then there's
the step level.
The step level. This is the highest precedence. Whatever the step has set, that's going to run. There is another level though, and that is the deployment. When I'm going to hit Control D to deploy this. When you hit deployment, I could say run as deploy user interactive, and that will overwrite the package settings, but it will not overwrite the step settings.
Yep.
So the level of precedence from lowest to highest is preferences, package, deployment / schedule, steps.
Yep.
All right. And there are times, if you look at our Dropbox package, let me just hurry and grab that real quick, just to call this out. Dropbox is a great example of this. As we import this, Dropbox has anything in the package library for the most part. We hard code that package setting to deploy user, and that's just because in case you've got we've seen people that have their preferences set to logged on user, and it's just going to fail. So I'm going to view this package.
Now, Shane, with logged on user, right? The logged on user is going to need to have rights to actually do an install.
Depends on what you're installing, but yes. So notice, and we've imported this in the package library, the properties, this is set to deploy user. However, we have a couple of steps down here. Start Dropbox if user is logged on. And we have that run as set to logged on user. And the condition set to only run if a user is logged on. So if a user is logged on when Dropbox is being installed, it's going to say, oh, it passes this condition.
Cycle it.
Run as the logged on user and start Dropbox, since Dropbox needs to run in the user context. So that's an example of where the precedence is very important. We set logged on user at the step level. All right. We can jump on to the next one unless...
Any question? All righty. So
let's do a target list.
Target list. Okay.
Now, back in the day when we first started out, for those of you who've been with us since the beginning or very near the beginning, you probably used target lists, and they've kind of fallen out of fashion. A target list is going to be used if there's like a consistent set of targets that are always going to be a deployment for you. For instance, maybe you have an engineering team and you want to always have those engineering computers near to hand, ready to deploy an engineering application to, and you don't always want to have to go and look for those. You can set this up using a target list. So we're going to click on New Target List, and we'll call this, we'll just pretend.
Sure.
We'll just call it.
I use target list for my testing. When I want to test new packages, I just throw it.
Okay, so maybe we'll call this one First Run, or these are my test machines. Because when you're building will you move that? Thanks. When you're doing, I hope that you're not doing what Lex does. When you are testing your packages, I hope you're pushing them out to some select computers instead of just
launching
spray and pray.
I only do that
so first
on
run
days
machines
that end with Y.
That's right. Here, obviously, like anything else, you can choose your targets. You can type in target names, granted, or you can choose targets from like an Active Directory. So this is basically where you would go through and say, all right, these are the computers that constitute my test computers, right? Oh. Say, okay, they're going to be listed there. You can also link to, where you don't link to computers, but you link to sources. We'll go to PDQ Inventory for this one. How about that? And we'll just go down to workstations and Windows 7 32-bit. So now our test machines will always be these 4 plus anything that's Windows 7 32-bit. And the cool thing about it is you can always use this as a target. If I want to do a test, deploy this test package, I can choose targets. Notice there's a target list, and it will choose it. But did you know, saying okay, pulls up those targets, but did you know that you could just drag and drop this target list to a package and it will do the same thing? It will actually open up the Deploy Now window where you can either set a schedule or just deploy now, and it will populate those targets. And conversely, you can also take a package and drag it over your target list, and it will do the same thing. All right. Yeah, we can take a question. Let's shoot it.
To my package pushers, how can we set up auto deployments to support test deployments prior to full deploys? Sincerely, Anthony W.
Is it okay if I make a decision by fiat, JJ, and just say that this should probably be a question that wins some award? There's not enough words, Anthony, to say how much I love this question. Yeah. That's a fantastic question, and yes,
it is a good one.
Lex, this uses A, compassion,
whoa.
B, common sense.
Oh,
so I'm going to have
either.
to ask you to step off the dais. Just get your ass over here.
Out.
Get over here.
I'm so out.
Okay, so this is a great question, and in auto deployments, get over here, Lex.
All right.
I love you. All right, so we're gonna take this. Notice we've got our baseline. Pardon me. We're gonna go to all schedules. We have a baseline apps with a lot of auto deployments, but we're gonna modify this, and we're gonna say this is a first run auto deployment. We'll do it per application. All right. So I'm gonna come over here to Java under a package library.
Java.
And we'll just say Java 8, the 32-bit. Now we're gonna add a new auto deployment and create a new schedule.
Yeah.
And in this schedule, we're just gonna call this Java first users. All right. And this is where you would set your targets. And of course, your target, let's just say we wanted that first run. We're gonna link it to whatever our target list is that we just specified for first run. All right, our triggers, we'll do this daily at 11 o'clock.
Sounds good.
All right, that sound good? Actually, we'll make that 12.
Don't want that launching right after we're done.
Make that lunchtime. All right, so Java first users. And then we're gonna say okay to this. Now, it's gonna create a new auto deployment. Go Java 8. In Java 8, you'll see we have schedules. We should have 2 of them. Java first users. Under the auto deployment, I'm going to change this from automatically being approved at 7 days to just immediately. And we've set a more aggressive schedule. So, in answer to your question, Anthony, now these computers will get Java every day at 11. Once it sees a new version, it automatically approves that, so it's attached to the schedule every day at 11 or whatever your schedule is. These will get the new Java. The other one is set to 7 days. That gives you a week to determine if that new version of Java is okay for your entire environment. So
I'm still not understanding the compassion or the common sense.
This is once again I understand this is over your head because it uses a non-monosyllabic words and compassion. I don't understand compassion. A great question, Anthony.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about the dragging and dropping. It's amazing how many people are like, whoa, I didn't even realize you could do that. Now, deploying with multiple credentials.
So this you have to have inventory for, guys. Because when you add machines into inventory, you can select different credentials to add them. So you've got domain credentials, multiple domain credentials, or in this case, non-domain, which would be like a work group.
If you have computers that some computers are not on a domain, or you have you have credentials that don't work on all computers, you need a separate set of domain credentials for your engineering computers, to use that example again. You create those in inventory under your credentials, and you add all the credentials that you need. All right. So what we're going to do, go ahead.
Now, there's a couple ways you could do this, right? You could set up multiple deployments and select the different credentials, or smarter way to do it would be
this way. So when you do a deployment, I'm going to hit Control D to initiate that. Notice you have your credentials. These are going to be right there.
Oh man, I am so not able to do that.
That's okay.
All right, good enough.
Yep. See how easy it is? These are your credentials. This runs, let's say I want to run this as Quintana. All my targets will use Quintana. The way deploy is set up, it's one set of credentials per deployment. So if you had to break up your deployments where you had different credentials, you'd have to say, okay, I'm going to use Quintana for these computers and then a separate deployment using the user Trixie. But if you have inventory and the scan users are set appropriately, you can just check this. Right under here, the use PDQ inventory credentials if they're available.
One and done, guys.
How you change your user credentials, number one, when you add a computer in inventory, the credentials that were used to add that computer are by default the scan user. So let's go over here to Emily Lab. There's several ways you can check the scan user. You can right click on Emily Lab and say select scan user. She was added by Quintana, but we want to say, we're going to make her go to Trixie. Trixie is the credentials for her. All right. You can do a multi-select as well. Select scan user. You can also, we'll change all of these here to Trixie. You can also do it from the computer window where you select scan user. And if you're actually into the computer window,
you can do it there.
You can do the same thing under computer, select scan user, all right? So you have your different scan users. It's important that you set those in inventory, because now when I say, let's do a test package here and deploy, but use the inventory collections. Oh, you know what? I'm going to actually show you another thing that people may not understand.
Okay.
And that is, I'm going to just do a copy and paste. We can hit a couple. We'll do a copy paste. I'm going to hit Control C, and then I'm going to go over here to my deployment here, deploy, and I'm just going to click in here in this targets tree and just hit Control V and copy and paste right there. Once again, it's not entirely intuitive, right, Chris? This was a game changer for Chris when he discovered this. So now notice we're saying Chris Powell, but use the PDQ inventory scan user credentials. So when you hit deploy, and I believe I hit the right ones,
those will use the credentials that are set up in inventory.
Don't look at this console user as, whoa, they're all running as Quintana. No, that's the consoles running as Quintana. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. If we notice, we've got a smattering of some are running as Quintana, some are running as Trixie. All right, so if you have inventory, it's got to have I believe it's Pro or Enterprise?
Enterprise, I believe.
I think it's Enterprise.
Yeah.
If you have that in enterprise and that computer exists in inventory because it has to have the scan user, it will use that. And notice, if we go up here to options in our credentials for deploy, we don't have Trixie listed there.
Yeah.
Right? We're getting that from
inventory.
inventory. We trust inventory. All right. So let's move right on down.
Should we copy a step from one package to another?
Yeah, and part of the steps, if you're creating some packages, like I've got Adobe Reader DC package here, and I really just love these steps right here for another Adobe package. Instead of recreating those, copy and paste.
Yep.
Just go ahead and copy those. Open up to a new package. Right click, or the Control C, Control V, and those are copied. So you can copy steps from one to another. Jason really wanted us to call out that not only can you do the copy paste, but you can also disable. So you're troubleshooting, you're working on a
I know step one works. Let's not.
I know step one works, or step one might actually make some pretty big changes that I don't really want to change. But I don't want to delete it. You can just right click on and uncheck the enabled, and you'll see that is now a disabled step. So it will not run, but you didn't lose it. Then you can just re-enable that.
Okay, another thing you guys can do, there's some things you can do other than just deployments with deploy. Brig was nice enough to build a package for us. You can
Where is
flush the
that?
DNS. It's right here, man. So this, if I want to launch this, I'm going to flush the DNS, release, renew, and register the DNS. So if you've got DNS issues, you can launch this out, and hopefully machines will pick it up and re-register with your DNS. You can do that. You can do
It's basically
Yeah.
computer management. Yeah, don't just think, PDQ
Only
Deploy, I
installs,
can
yeah.
install applications. Go ahead, Chris. He's gonna have a heart attack over here. He wants to say something.
PowerShell, all the things. Seriously, management, PowerShell,
Yeah.
everything. PowerShell.
You may have a bunch of packages that don't do anything with the applications. It doesn't deploy. It doesn't uninstall.
Maybe just as a weekly reboot.
Yeah, maybe it just modifies the registry or whatever scripts that. This is a computer management system, so just
Think
it's
outside the
important to
box a
break
little
away
bit, yeah.
of. There are so many tasks that you as administrators do that you could use inventory or deploy for, even though you're not installing an application.
Yep. Just to get it out to the machines and have it run.
Another one I want to call out. I'm going to really quickly go out to. I'm going to go to the registry. Let's say that I want to grab a particular key. I'm going to go to software, and let's just find something. We'll do Firefox right here.
Okay.
Let's say I, for some reason, just want to copy this. I want this registry key and its sub keys and sub values. I want this. I'm going to export this to a .reg file. We'll put it on the desktop.
Firefox stuff. That's what that is.
So all I'm doing is creating a reg file. Those of you who've used the registry probably know about these. Hit save. There is. Go ahead and zoom out a little bit. Out. Warmer. There is that Firefox reg. So how do I get this onto
all the machines?
Any machines? And this could be just something that you've created. Don't just think of Firefox. Think of any registry setting that you need. How do you want to get this out? Now, let's go ahead and create a new package. We'll call this
Firefox
registry changes. And we're gonna create a new step. And which step are we gonna use?
Install step.
The install. Once again, people think, I must specify an MSI or I must specify an EXE.
Batch
Wrong.
files, VBS files, heaven forbid, right, Chris?
PowerShell. You can even do PowerShell from the install.
Yep.
Always PowerShell, never VBS.
Yes. And reg files, guys.
So now I'm going to just go over here to the desktop, choose Firefox Reg. That is now the install file. And if you look down here at the command line, if you can zoom, I'm not sure if you can zoom in anymore. If you look at that command line, we're saying, run regedit with a /s, which means silent, and then this registry. And what that will do is just use regedit silently to import that. All right. So one caveat there, I must call out: if you are going to grab the H key current user, this is a big one. People are like, I need to import current user. You can do it. Just some things you need to be aware of. Let's say that this was a current user registry changes. You would need to go, first of all, I would go to conditions and say, only run if a user is logged on. And then in options, I would say run as logged on user. At that point, if a user's logged on, it will place it there. It doesn't mean that it's the user you're looking for. There's a caveat.
Yeah.
But if you're doing anything with HKey current user, then you need to do it this way. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's throw out.
Hey there, deployment lords. When setting up a schedule, are we able to run a reboot step between another package install? Or do we have to schedule a separate install? Sincerely, Chris G.
In the middle?
The answer is yes, to either situation.
Okay.
So you can have a reboot. You can have a reboot package in the middle of a schedule, and the schedule sequence is listed by the sequence of packages that are pushed out. So you can adjust those attached packages. You can have a reboot in there. You can have a reboot in a package. You can have a reboot in a nested package. Let's say that installing Java here. Let me just go out. I don't want to wait. Let's say for some reason we want to reboot in the middle of Adobe Reader. Let's say after we have updated Adobe Reader, we're going to create a new step. We'll do a reboot
step.
And 30 seconds. If you want to do a message saying, this
I dare you to save your data.
This system's going to be rebooted. If you don't like it, sorry. I'm the admin. Rock on.
Finally.
What happens is this is going to... You're rubbing off on me, brother.
Yes.
This is going to run a reboot, and when we see that a reboot has been initiated, we, as in PDQ Deploy, will wait for that computer to come back online. Now, how long will we wait? We will wait for the duration of the timeout. The timeout is set in preferences. By default, it's 60 minutes. But as going back to those custom options, there are times you're going to want to have either a shorter or a longer timeout.
Yeah.
Doing certain Windows patches, for example, you might want a longer timeout. So whatever this value is set to, by default it's 60, but let's say 120. It's going to be, it will wait as long as it takes a timeout for that to come back. Once it comes back, it will pick up where it left off, whether it's in that package, starting another schedule or whatever.
Yeah.
If this is the behavior you're not seeing, let us know. There may be a bug in there. But
hey, can you do a reboot in the middle of an auto deployment if you got multiples?
yes.
So you can do that in the middle of that too.
I'm sorry. You can do it at the beginning or
the end,
Yes.
but not in the middle on an auto deployment.
Yes.
Just want to point
However,
that out.
you can have, you can have multiple auto deployments in a schedule, and one of those auto deployments has an after of a reboot, and then so on and so forth. So
There's ways to do it.
There are ways to do it.
So we're at like 34 minutes, but you've got one more. Do you have one more?
Let's talk about including and excluding targets. Man,
let's
I'm
do it.
always afraid someone's going to launch something to my servers. So let's show you how to globally exclude machines. So go to preferences.
Yep, and target filters. So this has been around forever. The target filters, you have exclusions and inclusions. I've met one customer that does inclusions. The exclusions mean I'm going to specify computers or subnets that I never want deployed to. Notice we've got TFS splat. The splat means any computer that begins with TFS. We've got a couple of other computers. Let's say your domain controllers begin with like DC.
Yeah.
Just do a
Splat.
DC
Boom.
splat. Add that filter. If any computer name has that, it'll work. To do a subnet, you would actually specify the subnet. The mask basically. You would do like 192.
To 168. One dot
And then it'd be
/24. There you go.
Add filter, and it will say that's anything that's on that subnet now won't. I'll go ahead and remove that. To remove them, you just hit delete. So just to show it, we'll push this. We'll push the test one out to Venice because Venice is on there. And here's the error that you will see. We'll say, hey, let's deploy to Venice, and their Exchange servers are a big one. Don't deploy to Exchange servers,
don't do that,
folks.
yeah.
I mean, there's.
Stay away from your DCs. Stay away from your, do those by hand, guys.
You'll notice the error that came right back. It didn't even attempt the deployment. It just said this target has been excluded by a target filter. And I mentioned this. The inclusion is just the opposite of this, which I guess one customer has used, and that is only place computers in here that you want to deploy to. So let's say that maybe you only ever want to go workstations, and all of your workstations begin with either WS, splat, or NB splat for like notebook or something, NB splat. By doing this, only computers that begin with WS or NB will be deployed. Everything else will fail. So use that wisely. But it's a great, using the exclusions is really a great way of just
keep yourself safe.
I don't ever want my DCs to be hit by this, or whatever. So there you go. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody for watching. Hopefully we it helped to enlighten you on some features that you
everybody
that you didn't know existed. If there's something that you've kind of stumbled upon that you're like, whoa, I didn't know this could do this. But hey, post that to our forums and just say, hey, everybody, I found out that you could do this. I didn't know it. And
we enjoy hearing what you guys have come up with.
Chances are there's a lot of people that don't know that, and maybe even some of us. So rock on. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much, Jake, for filling in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And Kelly for taking over for JJ, and JJ for standing back there pretending to know what the hell you're doing. We'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks for joining us today, everybody. Congratulations to our swag winners. We've got Chris Gordon, winner of the coffee mug, Anthony Weiss, winner of the whiskey tumbler, and Dwayne Bytert, the winner of the floppy coaster. So just go ahead and you three send us your info to webcast@pdq.com, and we will get those sent out to you. If you guys have any additional questions, don't forget to hit up our support forums and check out our collection of informative and entertaining YouTube videos. Thanks again for joining us, everybody, and we'll see you back here next week.